When the lights dim and the cameras stop rolling, the world of Fox News stars transforms into something far more human and far more fragile. Behind the confident smiles and fiery monologues lie stories of heartbreak, loyalty, and quiet endurance. The faces we see every night, Tucker Carlson, Sean Hannity, Megyn Kelly, and Judge Jeanine Pirro, may seem untouchable, but beyond the spotlight, each has fought personal battles that fame could never protect them from. Some found love that endured decades of storms. Others saw it crumble under the weight of scrutiny and public life, but they all share one truth: the struggle to find something real, a partner to stand beside them when the applause fades and the headlines turn cold. And perhaps no one embodies that balance between a strength and a scandal more than Judge Jeanine Pirro. Jeanine Pirro was born on June 16, 1951, in Elmira, New York, to hardworking Lebanese-American parents. From a young age, she was determined, brilliant, and unwilling to accept limits. Long before becoming one of Fox News' boldest voices, she had already carved her name in American history by breaking through barriers in law and politics. In 1990, she made history as the first woman elected district attorney of Westchester County. Her courtroom presence was magnetic. She took on cases of domestic violence, child abuse, and sexual assault, the kind of battles many once ignored. To the public, she represented justice with compassion, fierce yet humane. But behind that image of control, her personal life was becoming far more complicated. She met Albert Perino in law school in the early 1970s. He was charming, ambitious, and driven, a perfect match for her own intensity. They married in 1975, quickly becoming one of New York's most admired power couples, elegant, politically connected, and unstoppable. Albert's real estate success and Jeanine's rising legal fame intertwined with high society circles, mingling with Republican elites, including Donald Trump. They raised two children, Alexander and Christine, in a life of influence and luxury. But the glittering image couldn't hide the cracks forming beneath. In 1999, Albert's empire began to crumble. He was indicted on 34 counts of tax evasion and conspiracy, accused of disguising over $1 million in personal luxuries as business expenses. For Jeanine, then serving as district attorney, the scandal was both public and deeply personal. She attended the hearings, calm and composed before the cameras, but privately, she was devastated. When Albert was convicted and sent to prison, her world shattered. Though he served only 11 months, the damage to their marriage and reputation was permanent. Then came the 2006 love bug scandal, the moment her private heartbreak became tabloid spectacle. Convinced her husband was having an affair, Jeanine allegedly sought help from former NYPD Commissioner Bernard Kerik to plant a listening device on Albert's boat. The plan never materialized, but when the story leaked, it was enough to destroy what little privacy she had left. Overnight, she went from respected prosecutor to the subject of gossip columns. By 2013, after 32 years together, Jeanine and Albert officially divorced. Yet even in the ashes of a scandal, Jeanine refused to break. Her defiance became her strength. She rebuilt her life on television, hosting Justice with Judge Jeanine, a show that turned her sharp mind and unfiltered honesty into a national phenomenon. Millions tuned in, millions more criticized her, but she didn't care. She had found a new battleground, and she owned it. Even when controversy returned in 2021, when her on-air comments were cited in the Dominion voting systems lawsuit that cost Fox News nearly $800 million, Jeanine stood tall. Most people would have disappeared. She did not. Today, in her 70s, she remains fearless, unapologetic, and unbreakable. Jeanine Pirro is a paradox, powerful yet vulnerable, admired yet condemned. She has endured betrayal, scandal, and public humiliation, yet still walks forward with her head held high. She is living proof that true strength isn't about never falling. It's about surviving the fire and walking through it again. For Sean Hannity, success came early, and so did the scrutiny that followed. Since the mid-1990s, he has been one of Fox News' most commanding and controversial voices. His show, Hannity, became a nightly ritual for millions of viewers, a blend of fiery political commentary and unflinching loyalty to conservative causes. Yet behind that confident, outspoken persona lies a man who has spent decades guarding his private life like a secret. For over 20 years, Sean was married to journalist Jill Rhodes, a woman who shared his passion for news and storytelling. They met in the early 1990s when he was a rising radio host in Alabama and she was a political reporter. It was a partnership built on ambition, faith, and quiet devotion. Together, they raised 2 children, creating as normal a life as possible, while Sean's fame skyrocketed. But the pressures of fame are relentless. The long hours, the constant attacks, the isolation of being watched by millions. Slowly, the bond began to wear thin. In 2019, after more than 2 decades together, the couple quietly divorced. There was no public statement, no media circus, just silence. The news didn't reach the public until a year later, long after the papers had been signed, and that silence said everything. For Hannity, it was the end of an era, but also the beginning of something unexpected. Around that time, whispers began to circulate through the Fox News corridors about his growing closeness with Fox and Friends co-host Ainsley Earhardt. They had worked together for years, but now colleagues noticed something different, a bond that went beyond friendship. Rumors intensified when they were seen arriving together at events, including one wedding where the two reportedly landed by helicopter side by side. Both denied any formal relationship, insisting that their personal lives were private. But the connection between them was undeniable. During the pandemic, when the studio shut down and shows went remote, Ainsley broadcast Fox and Friends from Hannity's home studio, a quiet confirmation that their lives had intertwined in more ways than one. Ainsley herself had faced her share of heartbreak. Her second marriage to former NFL player Will Proctor ended in 2019 amid painful rumors of infidelity. Left to raise her daughter as a single mother while maintaining her demanding TV schedule, she found herself in the same emotional wilderness that Hannity knew too well, the loneliness that fame can never fill. Through faith, shared values, and mutual understanding, the two grew closer. Friends described their relationship as private but deeply grounded, not the flashy romance of celebrity gossip, but something steadier, something that felt earned. And in December 2024, quiet reports surfaced that Sean had proposed to Ainsley at their church in Florida. There were no grand gestures, no public announcements, just a simple, heartfelt moment shared between two people who had already endured the public's judgment. Today, they live largely apart. Sean in Florida, Ainsley in Manhattan, meeting on weekends to bridge the miles between them. Their story isn't about glamour, it's about survival. Two people who have known both public adoration and private pain, finding refuge in each other's company. Away from the cameras, away from the spotlight, They've built something real, quiet, fragile, but true. Their connection stands as a reminder that even in a world built on appearances and politics, love can still find its way through the noise. Greg Gutfeld may be known as Fox News's sharpest wit, the man who turns controversy into comedy and satire into a nightly spectacle. But behind that smirk and quick one-liners lies someone who has spent his life avoiding the chaos of fame. As host of Gutfeld, he's built a reputation for mocking everything and everyone, including himself. Yet when the studio lights go dark, Greg retreats into a world far removed from television, a world of peace, privacy, and quiet devotion to the woman who changed his life forever. In 2004, during a trip to Portugal, Greg met Elena Moussa, a Russian-born model and fashion stylist working for Maxim Russia. It was an encounter neither expected, brief, electric, and, as fate would have it, life-changing. Within 5 months, they were married. Friends were shocked. Greg himself would later joke, "It was the only decision I made without overthinking." 2 decades later, it remains the one decision he never regretted. Elena left the glossy world of magazines to start her own design business, eventually joining Greg in New York City. Together, they built a life deliberately hidden from the public eye. No red carpets, no interviews, no public declarations, just quiet mornings, creative work, and the comfort of companionship away from the constant noise of media. Greg, who thrives on confrontation in front of the camera, becomes a different man at home. Calm, reflective, grounded by Elena's steady presence. He often calls her the calm in the storm, and those who know him best say she's the reason he's managed to balance success with sanity. For years, the couple lived simply despite Greg's growing fame. Then, in 2024, they made a surprising move, purchasing a $10.5 million Soho loft. But unlike most celebrities, it wasn't a show of wealth or status. It was a sanctuary, a place to raise their daughter, Mira, who was born that same year when Greg was 60. The birth of their first child transformed him. The once cynical satirist began to soften, his humor still biting but tinged with something warmer, perspective. Becoming a father so late in life gave him a sense of purpose he hadn't known before. He often speaks of late-night feedings and quiet family walks as if they were the most meaningful moments of his life, because for him, they are. Still, controversy never strays far from Greg Gutfeld. His sharp tongue and fearless humor have sparked outrage time and again, from mocking world leaders to making remarks about Canada's military and Holocaust survivors that drew widespread backlash. Each time, the world waited for Elena's reaction, but she never spoke. She didn't need to. Her silence has always been her strength, her way of protecting what they have from the circus outside. Their relationship thrives on one simple rule: the real laughter happens at home. Away from the cameras, away from the stage, they share a life built not on fame, but on understanding. She grounds him, and he in turn brings lightness to her calm. Together, they've managed what few in television ever do, a love story that's both hidden and enduring, untouched by the glare of celebrity. Greg Gutfeld and Elena Moussa's story is proof that even in the loudest world of media and politics, the truest happiness often whispers. Then Perino has always been a portrait of calm in a world that thrives on chaos. While others on Fox News raise their voices and argue across the table, Dana listens, steady, thoughtful, unshaken. As co-host of The Five, She brings grace to a network built on confrontation. But behind her composure lies a love story defined by quiet devotion, resilience, and the kind of partnership that lasts long after the cameras turn off. Before her television fame, Dana served as the White House press secretary under President George W. Bush, only the second woman in American history to hold that position. It was a role that demanded poise under relentless pressure, facing a sea of reporters ready to tear apart every word. That experience, more than anything, taught her balance, a balance she would later carry into her marriage with Peter McMahon, a British-born businessman with a calm, a strength that perfectly complemented her own. Their story began in the most ordinary of places, on a flight from Denver to Chicago in 1997. She was 25, he was 43. They struck up a conversation, just two travelers making small talk thousands of feet above the ground. Neither could have imagined that a few hours in the air would spark a love that would span decades. When the plane landed, something between them had changed. Within a year, they were married. Peter had spent his career working for international corporations before launching his own ventures. Though accomplished in his own right, he preferred to stay in the background, supporting Dana's public life without ever trying to share the spotlight. Those close to them say that Peter's quiet confidence became her anchor, the stability that allowed her to thrive in the unpredictable world of media and politics. He helps her prepare for interviews, edits her writing, and provides the sense of calm she needs to face the noise of the newsroom. Together, they built a life that feels more like partnership than performance. No children, no extravagance, just a deep companionship built on mutual respect and shared values. Their family, instead, has always included their beloved dogs. Jasper, the Vizsla, who became an internet sensation, was more than a pet. He was family. When Jasper passed away in 2021, Dana's public expression of grief touched millions. It was one of the few times viewers saw her vulnerability, the tears behind the composure, the humanity behind the polished image. Not long after, Percy, another Vizsla, came into their lives, filling the quiet of their home with joy once more. For Dana, Percy wasn't a replacement, but a reminder that love in any form can heal. Today, Dana and Peter's marriage stands as one of the most enduring partnerships in modern media. Away from the chaos of Washington and New York studios, their life is calm, simple, and private. There are no scandals, no controversies, just two people who chose each other again and again through every season of life. Dana continues to inspire not just as a journalist, but as a mentor and an author. Through her books and the speeches, she encourages young women to find a strength in grace and to lead with kindness, not noise. And perhaps the greatest proof of her message is her own marriage, one built on understanding, patience, and quiet strength. Dana Perino and Peter McMahon's story reminds us that love doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers, steady, gentle, and unbreakable. Megyn Kelly's life has always been a battlefield, one fought not with weapons, but with words, intellect, and sheer determination. To millions of Americans, she was the fearless face of Fox News, the journalist who asked the questions others were too afraid to voice. But behind that image of toughness lies a woman who, for years, struggled to find peace amid the chaos. Her story isn't just about fame or controversy. It's about how love helped her survive both. Before she ever stepped in front of a news camera, Megyn was a corporate attorney. For nearly a decade, she navigated the sharp edges of law, mastering logic and precision, skills that would later make her one of the most formidable interviewers in television. When she joined Fox News in 2004, her rise was meteoric. By 2013, she was hosting The Kelly File, commanding millions of viewers with her sharp questioning and unflinching demeanor. But every victory came at a price. Her success drew praise and admiration, but also resentment and attacks. The 2016 presidential campaign would push her further into the spotlight and into the storm. Her questioning of Donald Trump during the debates turned her into both a symbol of courage and a target of outrage. Yet through every controversy, one man remained by her side, quietly grounding her: Douglas Brunt. Doug was not a political figure or television personality. He was a former CIO turned novelist, a man who preferred the quiet of his writing desk to the chaos of news studios. They met on a blind date in 2006, introduced by friends who sensed they might understand each other's drive. They married 2 years later, building a life defined not by celebrity, but by balance. While Megyn faced headlines and heat, Doug built his own world of creativity and calm. When she left Fox News after publicly clashing with the network, and later joined NBC only to face backlash for her remarks about blackface. In 2018, Doug stood firm. When the media turned on her, he reminded her who she was, not the caricature they painted, but the woman he loved. Together, they shielded their 3 children from the chaos of public life. Doug wrote novels and hosted his own podcast, while Megyn rebuilt her career independently, creating The Megyn Kelly Show. Her voice, her terms, no corporate leash. Through it all, they remained each other's anchor. She brought fire, he brought calm, and together they found balance. In interviews, Megyn often credits Doug for saving her, not from failure, but from losing herself. When the noise grew unbearable, he was the one who told her to breathe, to remember what truly mattered. Their home became her refuge, not a mansion of glass and luxury, but a sanctuary of laughter, books, and family dinners. Megyn's career will always be tied to controversy. She has been celebrated, criticized, and everything in between. But her marriage stands quietly as her greatest success. Proof that it's possible to fight the hardest battles in public and still protect something pure in private. Today, Megyn and Doug continue to raise their children away from the glare of the media. Their love is built not on grand gestures, but on understanding, humor, and shared resilience. In a world where fame often destroys intimacy, they've built a fortress of their own making, a partnership of equals bound by trust and survival. Megyn Kelly's story is more than the tale of a powerful woman in media. It's a reminder that a strength isn't about winning every fight. It's about knowing when to step back, hold on to the people who truly see you, and start again. Before Tucker Carlson became one of the most polarizing figures in American television, he was just a teenage boy in Rhode Island who fell deeply in love. Long before the headlines, the controversies, and the fame, there was Susan Andrews, the quiet, graceful daughter of his high school headmaster, the girl who would one day become his wife and his greatest source of strength. They met at St. George's School when they were both just 15. He was loud, curious, full of ideas. She was calm, kind, and steady, the kind of girl who could silence the chaos in his mind just by being near. For Tucker, It was love from the beginning. He often said that meeting Susan was the best thing that ever happened to him. And as it turned out, she would be the only love he ever needed. Years later, after college and the early stages of his career, Tucker and Susan married in 1991. They had little money, no fame, and no idea what the future would hold, only faith in each other. Together, they began building a life grounded not in ambition, but in devotion. As Tucker climbed through the unpredictable world of cable news, moving from CNN to PBS, then to MSNBC, and finally Fox News, Susan stood by him through every change, every storm, every uncertain step. She rarely appeared in public, never gave interviews, and seemed completely untouched by the spotlight. While Tucker built a reputation for fiery opinions and political debates, Susan built a world for their family, a home filled with warmth and quiet normalcy. They raised 4 children together, choosing a life of privacy over the glitz of celebrity. For decades, she has been his sanctuary, the one person who doesn't see Tucker Carlson, the broadcaster, but simply Tucker, the husband, the father, the man who loves her. But even love like theirs wasn't immune to the weight of public life. In 2023, Tucker's sudden firing from Fox News sent shockwaves across the media landscape. The Dominion voting systems lawsuit had exposed internal communications, off-air comments, and moments of frustration that painted him in an unflattering light. For most, it would have been a career-ending scandal. For Tucker, it was a reckoning. Through it all, Susan never left his side. She stayed silent, steady as ever, helping him navigate the fallout with grace. As the world speculated and critics celebrated his downfall, she was there. The calm in the storm, the reminder that life goes on even when the headlines turn against you. Now, Tucker has found a new path. He broadcasts from his home in Maine, far from the bright lights of Manhattan and the noise of Fox's studios. He spends more time cooking with Susan, walking their dogs, and tending to their home by the sea. His days are quieter now, but also more real. Their story isn't one of fame or a scandal, it's one of endurance. High school sweethearts who faced the harshest glare of fame and came out still holding hands. Tucker and Susan's love has survived decades of pressure, public scrutiny, and professional chaos because it was never built on fame. It was built on faith, loyalty, and time. Behind every broadcast, every controversy, and every bold opinion, there's a man who still returns home to the same woman who once sat beside him in a classroom in Rhode Island. Their love story reminds us that in a world obsessed with noise and notoriety, the truest kind of love is often the quietest, the kind that endures when the world stops applauding. Behind all the headlines, beyond the fame and the fierce debates, these Fox News stars remain deeply human, flawed, hopeful, and searching for connection just like anyone else. Fame gave them power, but it also took pieces of their peace, their privacy, and sometimes their hearts. Yet through it all, love, fragile, imperfect, and enduring, continues to be their truest headline. When the lights of the newsroom fade and the final camera cuts, what remains are not the headlines, but the hearts behind them. These stories of Jeanine Pirro's resilience, Sean Hannity and Ainsley Earhardt's quiet bond, Greg Gutfeld's hidden world of laughter, Dana Perino's calm devotion, Megyn Kelly's hard-won balance, and Tucker Carlson's enduring love remind us that even the most powerful voices on television are, at their core, achingly human. They have known glory and humiliation, triumph and heartbreak. They've stood under the hottest lights and walked through the darkest nights. But through every scandal, every fall, every new beginning, they have proven one simple truth, that love, in its purest form, is what endures when fame fades. So now we turn the question to you. Which of these stories moved you the most? Was it the heartbreaks that broke them, or the loves that somehow survived the storm? Tell us your thoughts below. And if you believe these untold stories deserve to be remembered, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more deep, unseen journeys into the real lives behind America's most powerful faces. Because behind every broadcast lies a story the cameras never captured, and we'll be here to tell it.